Hi, Anita.
Hey, Sophie.
Welcome, everybody, today as we talk about getting ready for H-1B season. I feel like every year when we do this webinar, the initial date when we are providing the updated information always creeps earlier and earlier back in time. So it's just not even the middle of December yet, and here we are. But
Well, we have to. I think with H-1B season, I mean, H-1B season is creeping up as well.
H-1B season is becoming like a year-long
Yeah.
merry-go-round. So
How many lotteries were there this past fiscal year, Sophie?
there were three lotteries this past fiscal year, Anita.
So, I
It's
mean,
great.
their USCIS is definitely making it less of a season and more of a constant. But
Mhm.
yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. Well, welcome everybody. It's great to see all of our participants. I recognize a lot of names of clients and friends. And if you're new to our community, welcome. It's lovely to meet you. Our mission is to overcome borders, expand opportunity, and connect the world by practicing compassionate, cutting edge, and rigorous immigration law in service of the betterment of humanity. So, when it comes to immigration for tech startups, professional and professional immigration and family immigration, we have you covered. And hi, I'm Sophie, and I like helping people overcome borders. I remember when I was a little girl that my dad, who was an immigration lawyer, brought me back a T-shirt from one of his ALA immigration lawyer conferences, and it had all the flags of the world, and it said "Citizen of the World," and it was like an adult large, and I was 4 years old, and I slept in that thing every night. I loved it. So that is my vision. My lovely, I shouldn't say partner in crime because we're lawyers and we uphold the law and ethics, but my lovely co-instigator is attorney Anika Kumrikian, who's a brilliant attorney and an immigrant herself. And so I would say it's deeply personal for all of us. So
Absolutely. Thanks. Yes, no crimes are being committed at, on, or around Alcorn immigration law.
upholding
Um,
ethics
we
and
are.
integrity.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so stoked to be here. I am one of the partners, and immigration hits home for me. I moved to the
Yeah.
US when I was 4.5 years old. In some other presentations that we have, we put in a picture of my green card, which was pink actually, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever because I was like, oh sweet, they gave me a pink card because I'm a little girl. But no, it was pink because that's just what it is. Now it's like a multicolored hue of green, which some clients are like, hey, my green card's not green. I'm like, well, at least it's not pink.
Yeah.
But yeah, moved to the States from Iraq. I'm ethnically fully Armenian, but I'm a proud American. My older cousins make fun of me and they're like, Anita, you're so whitewashed and American. And I'm like, thanks, I've lived my American dream. How about you?
Oh my goodness. Some of you may have listened to our podcast, Immigration Law for Tech Startups, where Anita and I frequently banter and discuss our preferred latte flavoring, among other immigration law tidbits.
Yes.
So if you need more resources, that's available. This is our team. We've just hired like, I don't know, 5 or 6 people, and now we're hiring a bunch more. So it's very exciting. We're growing, and I just say it's deeply personal for all of us here in the work that we do. And as a result, we have been very successful. We're very proud of it. But mostly, it's exciting to see what we support our clients to create in their lives and in the world as a result of having these lines on maps that are barriers being removed for people to be able to live their dreams. All right. We do have a vast network. So for any of our clients out there who need intros, I'm a mentor at 500 startups. We work a lot with people from Y Combinator. We know investors at major VC funds. There's my TechCrunch Dear Sophie column. We've been in a lot of other newspapers. So this network is something we gladly leverage to support our clients.
Absolutely. I always tell people, if you have any questions and needs outside of immigration law, don't go to Google, come to us first. Like not the actual place, like don't go to your Google search engine, come to us and let's see if we can connect you with an advisor or a professional that we know.
I mean, if you work at Google, you can consult your employee immigration law list and you'll find us.
Yes.
All right. Well, Anita, why the H-1B?
It's a decent, honestly, I would probably say it's the most popular visa type ever, despite the tourist visa. Of course, I think the H-1B visa is the most utilized visa. It is an employment-based, employer-sponsored visa application. And why the H-1B visa? Well, why not? If you qualify and you're selected in the lottery and you can prove that you have at least a bachelor's degree and that you have a specialty occupation and that as the employer, you're going to pay a specific salary, then it is the awesome sometimes transition from a student visa, and then you obtain an H-1B visa, and then eventually the H-1B can be a vessel or a green card pathway for you to, or your employees to eventually obtain a green card and then eventually naturalize as US citizens as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, and here are some of the frequent things we hear from people in the tech ecosystem. I am in people ops, and we have somebody who recently graduated from Stanford or from somewhere with their master's degree, and they're working for us and they're on OPT, and we need to keep them here. We like them. Or we have been working with a global PEO, and we have all these contractors in Uruguay, and we adore them, and they need peace of mind and better education for their kids, and they really want to come to the US. How can we bring them here? Or from a candidate perspective, I want to move to the US and I don't have a Nobel Prize. I can't get an O1 yet. Please let me in. Another common need is, okay, we've got folks from Australia or Canada or Mexico on these funky professional work visa variants, and we want to position them to be able to get a green card. And all of those other visas are for non-immigrant intent. People can't stay in the US permanently. You can't have the intention to do that when you're applying for those visas. So an H-1B can be a bridge, and also folks who don't yet qualify for an O for extraordinary ability. So there's lots of reasons that people might be here today. Alrighty, and all of this, of course, is one tiny sliver of the entire vast sea of immigration law. The H-1B is a visa. It is a temporary ability to live and work legally in the United States for a limited duration, limited purpose. Whereas later somebody might want a green card, which is permanent residence, and that can lead to citizenship one day if the person wants. Usually that's done independently of an employer. And just one other thing to mention, if you're in that group of people who are outside the US and you know you want to move here one day and you're hoping to get a job offer and have the company sponsor you in the H-1B lottery, if you don't have, the H-1B is not your only route to the US. It's a very common one, but you could potentially sponsor yourself for a green card from another country, or you could have a company sponsor you for a green card from another country. Anita, you want to tell us about what students typically encounter in their US immigration journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So oftentimes when a student is in the United States, they will hustle to see what employer is out there that they can essentially latch onto that will maybe one day apply for them to be put into the H-1B lottery, and then eventually just so that they can stay permanently in the United States. So let's say I'm a student and I am going to school to get a computer science degree. So with that, I have the option of course, upon completing my degree, I have 1 year of ability to apply for and work for any employer under my F1 OPT, which is optional practical training. And then again, since I'm in school for computer science, that is a STEM degree and falls under the STEM field. So with that, I have the option of doing a 2-year extension of my OPT as well. And then during my time in school, or during my year or 3 years of being on OPT, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask my employers, hey, can you put me into the H-1B lottery? Because if they put me into the H-1B lottery and I'm selected, then not only can I finish off my 1 year or 3 years of OPT and then be able to claim my H-1B visa, but I know that if I don't get selected the first year, well, I have 2 more years, I have 2 more tries. So if you are an employer and you have somebody who is currently on OPT and it's their very first year of OPT, and that they still have 2 more years of STEM OPT, put them into the lottery now, because if they don't get selected this year, you're not going to scramble. You still have 2 more years of chances in the H-1B lottery for them to be selected. Yeah. So the typical and ideal student pathway is being in school, finding an employer that will put them into the H-1B lottery. And once they're selected, if they have no time left on their OPT or STEM OPT, then what they can do, of course, is start utilizing their H-1B visa if selected and if approved. If they do still have time left on their OPT, well, they can hold on to their H-1B approval and hold off on what's called activating your H-1B until after the STEM OPT is completed or their OPT period is completed, so that they can fully utilize their maximum of 6 years on an H-1B visa. And then eventually, during that 6-year period of time while on H-1B, what the H-1B applicant or visa holder will do is tell their employer, hey, can you now petition for me to get my green card? Let's go through the perm process so that I can get my green card and don't have to worry about my 6 years of H-1B coming to an end as well. So then eventually they'll become a green card holder and then can eventually apply for US citizenship as well.
Amazing. As you can see, the student immigration journey is not for the faint of heart. It's part of what makes America great. All right. And we have 3 ways to get a green card. Today, we're mostly just going to be focusing on all of these business pathways, primarily the H-1B, and a little bit talking about PERMs and I-140s and EB2 and EB3 and what that means for H-1B extensions down the road. But just keep in mind that it is possible to get a green card through 2 other mechanisms, through family-based immigration, like 90-day fiance and marrying a US citizen. And it's also possible through the annual free green card lottery, which is held online, and it's available for people from certain countries with low levels of immigration. All right, let's go into the H-1B basics. And can you tell us what is an H-1B?
Yeah, absolutely. So an H-1B is a dual intent visa, and it's specifically for those who hold a specialty occupation. And if you have an attorney that's creative enough, we'll make anything a specialty occupation. So with that, the individual, the H-1B applicant has to have at least a bachelor's degree. If they don't have a bachelor's degree, then they need to show that they have at least 12 years of work experience in that specialty occupation to basically make up for the fact that they don't have a bachelor's degree.
Okay, so somebody dropped out of college after 2 years, but then they worked for 6 years, that would also count.
Correct, exactly. So with that, we have to obtain a special evaluation, basically to show that, okay, this person does meet the requisite requirements for for the degree requirement or the work experience. So with that, if we can prove that it's a specialty occupation and the person has at least a bachelor's degree or the work experience or a combination of both, what we have to do is make sure that the employer is able and willing to pay the prevailing wage for this specific position. And so with that, what they're looking at is the metropolitan area for which the person is being hired, the individual's job title, so what their job duties are, and just like basically the title of their employment, and what is their, like, how experienced are they? Are they going to be taking on managerial skills? Are they like, what are they doing that puts them in specific different higher levels within that specific job classification?
Right.
So with that, that's the prevailing wage, and the employer has to pay at least that on an annual basis, of course, or hourly if it's an hourly, if maybe it's not full-time employment.
Great.
And yeah.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. And I want to acknowledge that we are getting questions in the Q&A panel, which we really appreciate. And we're going to be saving the ones about backup options till the end of the presentation. But please do continue to put your questions in the Q&A panel as we go, and we'll answer them. We'll include them if they're relevant to whatever slide we're talking about, and otherwise we'll loop back at the end. Great, thank you for that overview. So the reason there's a lottery is because the law says that there are only 65,000 regular H-1Bs available every government fiscal year, plus an additional 20,000 set aside for people with advanced degrees from United States colleges and universities, so master's degrees and PhDs. And this numerical limit is called the cap. Private companies are typically cap subject. There are some employers that are not subject to the cap, like universities, nonprofit research institutions, government. But for most purposes, for tech startups, tech companies, most are going to be subject to the cap, subject therefore to the lottery. And the demand has been creeping up to about, I believe most recently, almost 250,000 requests for H-1Bs. It's been pretty consistent between 200,000 and higher for the last several years. So the government has a lottery, and as Anita and I were joking at the beginning, in the actual calendar year of 2021 that we're in right now, we had lotteries in March, July, and November.
Yep.
So basically, whenever the government realized, okay, we selected more people, not everybody applied or got approved, now we've got extra numbers available, more people were selected and more people could apply. So it's kind of great because I don't remember that happening in the years before we had the electronic lottery system. So
Yeah.
more people are getting chances now.
And that's the main thing, because right now, I mean, the purpose and the reason behind that is that before two years ago now, so before when companies and attorneys had to file full H-1B petitions, USCIS wasn't waiting on getting the full packages. What they were doing is you'd mail the full H-1B package in its entirety on a specific day to USCIS, and then USCIS got them all, pulled the lottery, and then if you're selected, they adjudicate the case. Now what's happening is they're doing the selection, then USCIS is waiting 90 days to get all of the cases. And when they're not getting all of the cases, they're like, okay, well, what are we going to do with all of these extra H-1Bs? We'll get some heat if we don't give out all of these H-1B visas.
And they're suffering for money and they need all the premium processing fees. So it helps them to have more.
Right. So they're running, what happened last year, they ran the second lottery. And I remember I was in Lake Tahoe with my family.
You thought you were on vacation.
I got texts from friends saying there's been a second lottery. And I'm like, what alternative universe are we living in now? There's a second H-1B lottery. And then this year, not only was there a second one, and we were telling people maybe there will be a second lottery, who knows? But not only was there a second one this year, there was a stinking third one. So that kind of just shows you that what's happening is people are putting their prospective employees in the lottery because they have nothing to lose, $10 to lose in legal and government fees.
And I want to thank Natalia for sharing in the chat that the number was 308,000, which I like, okay, so that's the world we're operating in, right? So
Yeah.
people are like, okay, what are my chances? And I used to say, okay, maybe like a 1 in 4 chance. Probably that is too high at this point. But the masters people get 2 bites at the apple, so that advantage really does help individuals who studied higher degrees in the United States.
What do you mean? I mean, can you explain the 2 bites?
Yeah, they redid the lottery system 2 or 3 years ago, and essentially, I am not an engineer or a math person, but I think what they did, it's so counterintuitive. I think what they did is they calculated that if all the masters people were in the regular pool of 65,000 people first, and they do that selection, then all of those masters people would have their first chance. And then for the masters people who weren't selected, then they do the second lottery with that group of 20,000, so they get an extra chance. So they tried to tilt the odds in favor of the masters folks and PhD.
Very interesting.
Fun facts. There are other countries in the world besides these 3 red blobs. These are very rounded, but most H-1Bs holders are from India. China is a second, and then Europe and the rest of the world is kind of in third. It's not a race. It's not a competition. All right. Okay, so let's talk about the nuts and bolts. How do we start preparing? So, Anita, what's the first thing people can do to start preparing?
So to start preparing is it's time to, what we've been doing at least is we've been slowly reaching out to
us.
Yes, you can work with us. So we've been reaching out to people. People have been reaching out to us saying, "Hey, I think that like the lottery is going to happen soon. What do I need to do? I want to put my employee into the lottery." So reach out to us and let us know exactly which one of your employees or prospective employees rather you want to put into the H-1B lottery, and we'll support you throughout the rest of the process. We will do the electronic registration for you, and really all you have to do is just follow our directions and we'll do the rest.
Yeah, and a difference with how we're supporting our clients this year compared to last year was last year we supported a lot of companies with last minute requests, but this year we are starting now. We are doing these first come first serve, so first in first out. So if you want to ensure that we have the capacity to support you, it's really the time to sign up is really now. All right, and we do have 2 options. You can just do the electronic filing, which now that we all trust that the system is working, I would say this is probably the more common option. In this situation, there's a smaller investment because we're just taking it one step at a time. We'll put your candidates for your company into the H-1B electronic registration process in Q1. And then if the candidate is selected, then you'll have the option to decide how you want to proceed and engage us separately for the second portion. And option 2, which some companies want to do in an abundance of caution, getting the work done early, showing good faith to their team members, mistrust of the electronic lottery. There's a variety of reasons that individuals might choose to do this, but essentially, if you really want, we're happy to prepare the full petition now. At some point, hopefully your candidate will get picked in the lottery, and we'll just have that available to use whenever it happens. So let's talk about what's involved. All right. Can you tell us a little bit about the electronic registration system, please, Anita?
Yes. So we've done the electronic registration. It's been 2 years now. Both of those 2 years have been a little bit different. So what we're doing this year is waiting to get some more instructions and guidance from USCIS before we disseminate all of the information and guidance. But ultimately, there's two different portals. There is a portal for employers, and then there's a portal for us as attorneys. And what we ultimately have to do is link those two portals together. So there's the employers will go and create their portal, and then we have to link it by getting a special, it's like almost like it's a promo code. I don't know, or that's what I'm going to call it. It's a promo code so that you can work with us. And so with that, we were able to link our accounts, and then from there we take it over. We put in all of the beneficiary information and employer information, pay the nominal $10 fee, government filing fee, in order for the beneficiary to be put into the lottery. And then from there, we keep our fingers crossed, we submit everything, and then we wait to hear back to see whether or not the beneficiaries were selected. Once selected, we will reach out to everybody who has been selected and let them know, hey, you've been selected. It's time to get the green light from you that you actually.
And I will say that we usually try to tell everybody who's been selected pretty much as soon as we find out. We're not like holding on that. Sometimes we get questions from people who have not been selected in a second or third installment of the lottery, and we'll confirm. But as I hope everybody would understand, our highest priority would be to notify the people who did get selected first.
Yep.
Great. Okay. What sort of timeline are we expecting here? And I know that it changes every year.
It changes every year, but so early March is when we're expecting for the portals to open up. So USCIS will create the ability for employers and attorneys to go and create their portals. Early to mid-March, so last fiscal year, this past March, it was open. It was like the second and third weeks, I think, of March, where the portals were actually open to submit all of the beneficiary information. And then towards the end of March is when the lotteries actually run. So that's when we will actually know pretty quickly, actually, who's been selected in the lottery. Yeah. And then the earliest that we can file these H-1B application is in early April. So the full petitions are filed then. And you have up until, you have 90 days, and there's a specific deadline that the electronic registration process will kind of guide you on and say, okay, you have until this specific date, which is usually end of June, to submit the full petition.
And obviously, if somebody's chosen in July, they would have 90 days from that.
Exactly, yeah.
I was trying to think of a rhyme for like 90-day fiance, 90-day H-1B fiance. It doesn't work. I'm trying.
Sophie does it because she knows I love 90-day fiance. Fully education.
If anybody has a rhyme, please put it in the chat window.
Please send it.
So I've actually already gotten this question from potentially somebody listening to this webinar this week. So they're really motivated. They want to be focused and clear and forthcoming and have integrity and do the right thing and do it soon and do it now. Look, I even have a card that says, do it now. No excuses. I am responsible. I am responsible. Okay, great. So if somebody wants to take responsibility and get ready and start doing things now, if you're a human hoping to get an H-1B, which documents would you recommend that person starts gathering?
So mostly educational documents. Those are the most important. So diplomas, transcripts, having an updated resume. I know those aren't fun to have to update, but update them, keep them updated.
We don't need a CV that's like 36 pages. It's just a resume. It can be 1 page.
Exactly. All of your past immigration documents. I will say immigrants are probably the most organized people for the most part. There's always a few outliers, but like you guys do an awesome job of keeping all of your immigration documents. So hold on to them, provide them to your immigration attorney in an organized fashion so we can easily thumb through them and find what we need.
And tell us a little bit about companies, especially early stage startups. If they just incorporated, they've never done this before, what do we need to look at for them?
So just, going through the list that's on the screen, getting your FEIN and getting that kind of getting the rubber stamp or the green light from the Department of Labor that it is a verified FEIN.
Which is something we will handle for you in this process,
Yep.
but we do need that
Yeah.
letter, SS4 letter, saying that you have the number assigned.
Right. So we'll work with you to do all of that. We'll work with you to make sure that we're picking the perfect job title, brainstorming job duties to make sure that we're not doing too much so that the pay scale doesn't rise too high, or that we don't get any pushback if it's not really
Right.
job duties or a title that's related to the candidate's degree.
I mean, we
And then
are
just
not the like biotech in the trench engineering experts, so we defer to the company's expertise on what's actually involved in whatever role you're sponsoring for, but we want to help you structure everything so that you have the highest chance of approval.
Right. And sometimes that means maybe we'll give you some advice or guidance that you're not going to be the happiest with us for. But sorry, we're doing it in your best interest.
We do it because we love you.
Yeah, well, we do it because we share a common goal with all of our clients, right? Approval. We don't want to get an RFE. We trust me, we hate RFEs just as much as you hate RFEs. So if we can work together to just get an approval right off of the bat, then please let us torture you.
For your own good. All right. And then just some other tips for very early stage startups. I mean, proof of funding is always helpful. Bank account numbers showing runway can be great, but also they just want to know you're a legit company and not some fly-by-night sham operation. So any marketing materials, business plans, those things can be helpful.
And so with the rise of COVID comes the rise of companies that don't necessarily have an actual headquarters or no office. So if you find that yourself in that position, then work closely with an attorney, because we get a lot of pushback from companies and from USCIS when companies don't have
because companies don't want to bother to get an office if everybody's working virtually, and the government doesn't want to get out an H-1B if they think the company isn't legit. So,
yep. And they do their digging, let me tell you.
What have you seen lately? What have you seen lately?
Well, I was just at a citizenship interview yesterday, and this person owns a company, and this person in 2019 filed actually very relevant, an H-1B for one of their employees. And they, for some reason, had used a random residential address as the company address because of what the CPA's registered agent created the company for, specific tax benefits, blah, blah, blah. So we're at this client's citizenship interview, and the officer turns and says, "What is this random address for your company in Nevada?" And the client turns bright red and he's like, I don't know. My accountant files my taxes. My accountant basically runs my entire business paperwork for me. I don't know. So ultimately we figured it out. We called the tax accountant. Guy was able to.
From the citizenship interview, you called the accountant on the phone from the citizenship interview with the government USCIS officer there listening on speakerphone. Okay, great.
Well, it was not speakerphone. I knew better lawyering than that. But
trying to listen to this story.
Yeah, no. So it all ended up being fine, but it just goes to show the lengths that USCIS will dig to make sure that these companies are real. Because I was asking the question of, officer, how is this relevant for my client's citizenship application and H-1B that he filed for an employee of his? And he's like, well, it comes down to, did he lie in the H-1B application by saying that this company is real when there's no real company? Because the address that we started to send correspondence to turned out to be a residential address that mail got kicked back to USCIS from. So, long convoluted story short, you got to be careful. Follow your attorney.
Tell the truth.
Always.
Legitimately be compliant.
Mm-hmm.
You're asking for a benefit. It's your job to prove that you're worthy.
Yep.
Okay, great. And that scintillating story got us the question of, will the audience get the recording? And the answer is yes, the recording will be provided to all attendees next week. So just wanted to get that out All right, so magic ball, whatever, fast forward into the future. I don't know, I need something for that. Uh, let's assume you're selected in March. What do companies need to know? What is the initial next step?
The initial next step is reaching out to your attorney and like confirming, hey, we want to move forward with filing the full petition for this employee of ours or prospective employee.
Yeah.
And then just let the attorney do their thing in preparing the application. April 1st is really the soonest date that somebody can actually file an H-1B. And the reason for that is because the labor conditions application, the LCA, is only good for 6 months. And October the 1st is the very first day that somebody can actually start working in H-1B status. So that's why April 1st is an important date. And
Cool. I don't anticipate that the filing fees will change. Do you? I think
I
it's
don't
gonna,
either.
I see them staying constant. I know that USCIS wants to publish a new rule at some point, but there was so much litigation the last time they tried it. I think the
Oh my
fees will
gosh,
stay
so much
consistent.
pushback.
So pretty much it's gonna be for small startup, it's gonna be 1,710 to file, and then you can choose if you want premium processing, and we'll talk through that a little bit more in a bit.
Yep.
All right, we are we're gonna turn up the speed a little bit because we have a lot of audience questions and a lot more slides to get through. So Anita's already touched on this. We will help you prepare the petition. There is something called a labor condition application that we get certified by the Department of Labor, and there will be posting requirements in your company, and we'll walk you through exactly how you can do that. Sometimes people ask okay, premium processing. So basically, an H-1B left to its own in the wild, the government will take like 6 to 9 or 10 months at this point to make a decision. So if you need a decision fast, the way to get it is with premium processing. You pay the extra 2,500, they'll make a decision in 15 calendar days. If you get premium processing in April and you might get an approval, like let's say you filed on April 15th because you were ready to go, you might get your approval on May 1st, but that start date is still going to be October 1st. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes late in the summer, more people add in premium processing as well.
Exactly. That's usually towards the end of the summer is when people will start adding the premium processing so that they can have an approval by October the 1st. Especially important to those who utilized CapGap. Which I don't know if I'm sure we have a slide for.
We're going to be talking about that in just a minute. Yeah, great.
So we'll touch upon it, premium processing at that point too.
Okay, some updates. So just some things to keep in mind if you're a company and you're considering doing your first H-1B, you are making promises to the government in this process. So you're promising to pay the H-1B beneficiary the higher of the prevailing or the actual wage. You need to make sure your work conditions aren't adversely affecting US workers. There can't be a strike or a lockout. You have to tell the people in your company the salary range on the labor condition application that you're posting. You need to have a bunch of documents available in case any government inspector wants to come see it. That's called a public access folder. Very rare, but once I did have a startup visited in San Jose, and the receptionist was asked for that paperwork. Unfortunately, they actually had it printed there physically at the desk, which was great. So those are some of the promises. Over the last several years with the Trump administration, there are definitely some job classifications that we have advised our clients are risky. And so if there's any other way to classify some of these jobs, that is something we would probably recommend. However, there have been some strides recently made on that front. I would say most well-known computer programmers is computer systems analysts is kind of back and easier now. Maybe market research analysts as well. So this will come in discussion with the attorney on our team that you're assigned to, and you're based on your actual job title and job duties and job description. We'll figure out which is best, and we'll set you up for one of these that is more historically approved. Just some other minor updates. Work from home, you have to get specific authorization for this in the H-1B. So if the candidate is not going to be in the office full time, if there's no office, if home is the main work site, if there's multiple work sites, these are all things we need to know because we need to build it into the H-1B and it might affect the wage that you have to pay the person. So keep that in mind. In COVID and Trump a year ago, more than a year ago, there were a lot of threats that the prevailing wages would be increased, but that has not come to fruition. But if for some reason the wage that you find out is the prevailing wage and it's too high, we have the option to consider a private wage survey as evidence that a lower salary might be appropriate for the job. But this is our burden to prove that your salary is legit and sufficient for the candidate. Okay, now we do have some questions about travel and filing options, so now it's the perfect time to touch on these things. Can you walk us through what a change of status is for an H-1B
Yes.
holder, Anita?
A change of status is when somebody is in the United States and they are changing their status from a current status that they hold at that point in time to another status. So it doesn't necessarily have to be just for H-1Bs. Anybody can change their status from one visa type to another visa type while they're in the United States. With that, to change from one to another, you have to be in valid status to begin with. So usually change of status for people on who are going from one visa type to an H-1B, the visa type is usually often like a student visa, maybe a TN visa. Those are the two commons, maybe even a J1 visa. Basically, any visa for that is a single intent visa. People want to go from there to an H-1B so that they can eventually use that as a pathway to get their green cards as well. So a change of status.
Intent, it's okay to want to go forward on an H-1B.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Correct. So with that, it's going from one status to another, and the change of status with an approved H-1B is effective October the 1st.
Yep.
Of that fiscal year. So no matter what, even if it's approved, you're still not in that status yet until October the 1st hits.
Right. And if you leave in the summer before the change of status takes effect, the change of status will no longer take effect and you will have to get a visa to come back in.
So careful with that. Careful with travel careful with travel just in general. Always consult with an attorney or with your attorney before you travel. But yeah.
Okay, great. And let's talk about consular processing.
So consular processing is when the H-1B visa is filed in the United States with USCIS, but ultimately the applicant has to go back to their home country, get a visa stamp in their passport, their H-1B visa stamp in their passport, and then they enter the United States with that H-1B visa, and they quote unquote activate their H-1B, and that's when they are officially and effectively in H-1B status. So it can be as early as 10 days before October the 1st, because what USCIS is allowing people to do is move to the US, situate yourself so that you can start work on October the 1st.
And as Anita mentioned previously, sometimes candidates in the United States in a valid non-immigrant status like F1 OPT or STEM OPT choose consular processing, even though they're eligible for a change of status, because they don't want their H-1B to take effect and nullify their F1 OPT on October 1st. So you choose consular processing, they just don't schedule a visa interview one day after the H-1B is approved. Whenever they go abroad, they can do a visa interview later, or even a change of status later at the end of their OPT or STEM OPT.
And there's two benefits of that. The benefit to the employer is that the employer does not have to pay the prevailing wage. The benefit to the employee is that they are able to hold on to their maximum 6 years in H-1B status. So it's pushing down when
their maximum OPT status.
Correct.
Yeah. Thank you. And we have a question from the audience about if you can't change status in the United States, does traveling outside the US to get a visa in Mexico or Canada, which is called a third country national processing, and then come back remain a viable option? And I was trying to research this last week. I think Mexico is a no and Canada is a probably not. What do you think?
So, and that is very specific to right now.
Yeah,
The issue
the
right
COVID
now is
thing.
that most countries, because of COVID and because of diminished capacity at the consulates, most countries are saying, I can barely see my own country's people. You expect me to take people of another country?
Yeah,
No, go to your country, get a visa stamp there, and then come to the U. And then you can go to the US. You're not going to use our country's resources. Pre-COVID, that was for the most part every consulate you have to check, of course, but
right.
pre-COVID, consulates were okay with other people from other countries going in. So to answer that question with an answer that lawyers love giving is it
It
depends.
depends.
During COVID, good luck.
Yeah, but certain random Caribbean nations might from time to time allow it. It's all over the place, and you have to be very careful in planning this.
Right.
There's another related question. Is it possible to file for the H-1B lottery while also applying for a J-1 visa? And I would say the answer is yes, because the H-1B is dual intent, so it's compatible with non-immigrant intent. But Anita says no, because J-1s are harsh.
The J1s are harsh, not because USCIS is harsh with it, but it's the sponsor entity that is difficult when it comes to J1 visas.
That's true.
Whenever anybody says anything about a J1 visa, I will do everything that I can to convince them out of that.
Anita hates the J1.
It just pigeonholes people, and I don't want people
It does. It's such like a shiny object that traps you into
It
this
does.
tiny
So if somebody wants a J1 visa, let's say, I'm sorry, if somebody's in the US on a J1 visa, the host companies will often even say, you can't even put these people into the lottery because we're going to invalidate their J1 status. So be really careful and tread water gently with a J and any other visa status. But
Thank you. Yeah, and this just sums it up. If you're seeking a change of status, you can't leave while it's pending. If you do, then you're going to be switched to consular processing, and it's really hard to get visa appointments right now. So, like, just figure out your plans and try to stay put.
right.
Don't go anywhere.
And listen to your attorneys when they tell you don't travel. Don't travel anyway, because then you'll get stuck. And then you'll send me emails saying, I'm stuck. And I can't say I told you so because that's not professional.
A lot of the COVID travel bans ended, which was fun, but now we have new ones for various African countries. So just keep in mind that if you're in Europe, China, Brazil, India, if you've gotten two doses of an approved vaccine, you can travel directly from those countries to the US now.
Yay.
And you need to show a negative test within a day before your flight to the US. Or if you test positive, then you need a doctor's letter showing that you've recovered. And there are very narrow exceptions that I have not heard about being fleshed out very much. So if you have more questions about that, that's a separate conversation. All right, so now we got questions about recent grads, STEM, etc. Okay, so quarter system students, if you're going to graduate in June and you're with your master's degree, then we have to, and you are selected in the master's cap, we can put you in the master's cap, but we can't file your petition until after your graduation date. So that is 1 point. And let's see if we got cap gap here. Right. So if you're on your final year of OPT, we have to file your H-1B petition before your work permit expires, not your grace period, the actual card. So either if you're in your last year of OPT and you're not eligible for STEM OPT, or if you're at the end of your STEM OPT. And if we file a change of status, then you're allowed to stay in the United States and keep working for the company up until October 1st when your H-1B kicks in. And if it's approaching October 1st and your H-1B is not yet adjudicated, we need to add in premium processing, because on October 1st, if it's not adjudicated, you'll be stuck in the country and unable to work until the H-1B adjudication comes through. So, yeah. Be careful. All right. Okay, great. Actually, I'm gonna go back to that because we got a couple of STEM questions here.
Yeah, I was going to say there's some STEM questions, Sophie. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the first one, if I get selected, can I still be on the STEM extension for 2 years and then use H1? That's Anita, that was your point, right? Choose consular processing and you can activate the H-1B at the end of your STEM extension, right?
Right.
Okay, great. Fabulous. And then we have another travel question. If I got approval for my H-1B change of status, can I travel internationally before October 1st? We prefer you don't, and if you do, talk to a lawyer because if you leave the country, you're going to need to get an H-1B visa in your passport in order to return and start working on October 1st. Or if you come back in on your F1 with OPT, your H-1B is no longer just going to kick in on October 1st if you've left and re-entered. So be very, very careful. All right. Few more minutes. Just want to cover a few more points before we get to the rest of the questions. This is a multifaceted process. We are here to guide you through it. We would love to support you, and you know where to find us. If you are considering going through this process for the first time, just give yourself psychologically enough space to breathe and be mindful because we're going to need your documents. You might have to go chase down things, get translations. We try to make it as simple as possible for all of us. But you know, there's high stakes and it can be emotionally involved. So just prepare that you're gonna need to cooperate and this is gonna take a little while and we are here to support you and we've got your back. Right, Anita?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So here's how to contact us, and everybody's going to be getting this recording and some other materials by email. You can subscribe to our podcast. We just had our 100th episode, which was super fun. Lots of exciting things happening there. But we do have 5 more minutes, so we will be answering a few more questions for everybody. So, somebody says, I have 1 year of OPT. What if I don't get picked for my first time in the H-1B lottery? Anita.
I mean, you know the very first thing that I want to say.
Fall in love with an American citizen?
Are you in chance in a relationship with a U.S. citizen?
Let's
If
choose
yes,
the feminist.
go get married.
Let's go with the feminist options.
If you are a feminist and you don't believe, you don't have to be just a feminist. If you don't believe in the institution of marriage, what?
Men can be feminists.
Yeah,
they just want to do things independently.
Yes. Okay. Anyways, we digress. There's a couple of different options. It really all. I know. Everybody hates this question. It really all depends on so many different personal factors.
Yeah.
To see. I mean, are you interested in maybe going back to school? Can
we qualify you for an E2 visa because you're from Germany and you're working at a German company? Or does your employer really appreciate you and want to do an H-1B without the lottery for you? And you're going to go teach US students for 5 hours a week and get 2 H-1Bs at the same time.
Right. So with that, I mean, it all really depends. What we try to do is, of course, if anybody is not selected and they have no time left, we will consult with you and we can give you what your options are after kind of speaking and understanding the full, really getting who you are, what your CV looks like, what your options are, and going from there.
And somebody had asked about the investment, and I would just say that's like a really important question that, of course, people want to know. Once again, the answer is it depends. We offer consultations. We're happy to chat with you about what it would be. It can be different for different companies, different timing, different situations. So we know that's very important, and we're happy to have those discussions offline. You know, another option that some people use to stay in the country is CPT Day 1 programs, F1 Masters programs. You just have to be really careful with these. The government scrutinizes them heavily in later changes of status or adjustments of status because there were fake schools that were taking students' money and not following the rules, and a bunch of people got deported. So The potential issues are fraud accusations. So you have to be very careful in choosing programs that actually comply with the rules and following them and documenting the whole entire process. And then whether to go from there to an H-1B or a green card, it depends on your travel plans, your country of citizenship and birth, your marriage status, lots of details. All right, let's see. So many questions, so little time. We will take one more. Here's from somebody. This person got selected in 2016, but only used a couple months before changing to another status. Now the new company is going to do an H-1B. Do they need to go through the lottery? No, I think in this situation, the company can just do like an H-1B transfer situation and change your status and reactivate your old H-1B.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Any parting thoughts, Anita?
I actually do want to answer one last really quick question. If my company has many subsidiaries, can they register my application from each of them and boost the chances? Be very, very careful with that. Because if USCIS, for whatever reason, believes that you are just using that as an opportunity to
multiple chances in the lottery.
Have multiple chances, they will completely disqualify you from that year's lottery. So just tread lightly there, work with an attorney. If they're subsidiaries as long as you're going to be hired by one specific company. But you just got to tread water carefully there.
Yeah. And we have a lot of resources in our podcast. We've done many episodes on H-1Bs, so we'll ask our team to share those links with you as well in the resources. So with that, thank you so much, everybody, for attending. Thank you, Anita. It was fun as always. I appreciate you.
Thank you, everyone. And if you have any questions, consider us resources and feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to consult with you individually.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.